Hey, good afternoon. And I want to just start out by saying, Gary, congratulations. You got to be so proud of Brett and Kyle. Great job, Brett. That was pretty smooth. As parents, we get a lot of joy from our children, so I know you must feel great about that. It's an honor to be here, and I'm humble to be here. You know, I want to also say that I'm pleased to share this day with a good friend and great business partner, Michael Strahan. Michael's a great business partner for JCPenney, but typically when you deal with celebrities, you find that they're not what they seem. This happens to be one of the most authentic people that you'll ever meet, so he's a classic example of a contradiction of a celebrity, and he's a great partner, and again, it's a pleasure to share the stage with him. So look, of all the things I've accomplished thus far in my life, I'm probably most proud of the fact that my wife Sharon and I have committed ourselves to being the best parents that we can be. As mentioned, Sharon and I have been married for 25 years. She looks a lot younger than me. I think it's genetics, which is a good thing. And we've been soulmates for over 30 years. And I want to thank her for being here today and thank her for all the support. You know, family is important for me. I'm a middle child of 7 kids. Grew up in a 2-stoplight town in rural Tennessee. I got a lot of family at this table. If I start to name everybody, we'll have the clock running down on me. But I want to thank all of my family, my siblings, in-laws, my dad for being here, because family is something that's very important to my wife and I. And I'll get to Gabrielle in a minute here. My son Donovan, who is 21, he's going to school in Dallas. And so he spent some time with us during the semester in the house. I called it Dad Boot Camp. He's in summer school, and trust me, he would much rather be hanging out in New York City, but he's in summer school wishing he could be here. So, you know, although I'm honored to be here, I'm fully aware that I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress as chairman and CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm a work in progress as a dad, meaning that every day you learn something different. And every day is a learning experience to strive to take these 2 big assignments I have and try to be the best that I can be. But I want to share just 3 commitments that I've made to myself, to my wife, and to my kids about being the best father that I can be. And the first commitment is the commitment of being accessible to my children. You know, I read a long time ago that children spell love T-I-M-E, time. And from that, you know, I'm a person that travels a lot, all around the country and literally all around the world, but not one time have I missed a parent-teachers conference, a band concert, or a sporting event of my 2 children. And when people ask me how that's possible with such a busy schedule, I tell them I have a foolproof way to determine what's important to people. I don't listen to what they say, I simply look at their calendar, because the calendar dictates priorities. And what I do at the beginning of every year, in a very painstaking way, is I meet with my wife, make sure I understand all the family events, and I make sure that my calendar, from a business perspective, work itself around the family. Not boasting, but it's just a commitment that I made to ensure that I have a level of accessibility to my children. The second commitment that I've made is to treat my wife Sharon like a queen. Now, she'll tell you she deserves it because she does. She's a beautiful, wonderful person, but really that's not the reason. It sends a message to my son on the importance of honoring and respecting women, which is something I think that we would all agree is kind of lost in society. But even more important than that, it gives my young daughter, who's 15 years old, a green light to understand that she has to set high expectations for the men in her life. So let me tell you a quick story. It's a true story. I don't think Sharon's ever heard this story. So back in February, I was invited to go to the White House with a group of retail CEOs to meet with the president and his economic team to discuss taxes and trade policy. This is an important meeting because there was some pretty aggressive policies being floating around in Congress, and I wanted to make sure my voice was heard. So anytime there's a change in schedule, sit down with Sharon, make sure that we look at the family calendar, and I'm not going to upset any priorities we have. But also, if I think I'm going to end up in the national media, I'll make sure the kids get a heads up so they can answer questions at school or address it with their friends. So when I mentioned to Gabrielle that I was going to be headed to Washington, D.C. on February 15th, she immediately reminded me that that was the day after Valentine's Day. And I told her I was aware of that. And she wanted to know, was I going to be, in fact, traveling on Valentine's Day? And I told her I was, and I was predicting where this was going. I said, however, I have a surprise lunch for Mom tomorrow before I depart out of town. At the moment I said that, I could sense the parent-child relationship starting to turn. And Gabrielle looked at me and said, Dad, that's simply not good enough. She went on to say, you may not know this, but Mom really enjoys the dinners that you all have to celebrate Valentine's Day. And although a lunch may be sufficient for you, it is insufficient to celebrate Valentine's Day with Mom, and you simply have to do better. It's a true story. And so my first thought was, who does this child think she is? She's 15 years old, I'm the parent here. You know what, I'm gonna show her. And I showed her. I told Sharon, pack your bag, you're going to DC with me. True story. So what's the purpose of the story? Well, number one, it taught me that I had actually done a pretty good job of reinforcing to my daughter the importance of having high expectations for the men in her life, starting with her father. But it also taught me as a father, and many of you know this, parents, we never stop learning from our children. So Gabrielle, thank you for teaching your old man something that day. Look, the last point I'll make is the commitment to nurturing the dreams of your children. I think as parents, we all know the importance of that. Yeah, I want to highlight Sharon's mom, who's here. She's a 28-year pastor of a church in Memphis, Tennessee, but she also raised 4 daughters as a single mom in Memphis, and she committed her life to these girls' dreams and did an outstanding job as a parent of having young ladies grow up strong and confident, and that made a commitment in their lives that really elevated their dreams. I want to highlight my dad, who's here, who grew up in segregation in the Jim Crow South. When I was born, my parents were sharecroppers, picking and chopping cotton. That's how they provided economically for the family. Had limited access to education, but preached the importance of education, how education was the unlock from poverty. But they also elevated our dreams of all of my siblings and I. They did not allow the economic environment that we lived in or the lack of success that was visual to us to limit the capacity of our dreams. And my mother has passed away, she's gone to be with the Lord, but I want to thank my dad, who's here, for really investing in the dreams of his children, because without that, I wouldn't be here and nor would my siblings be here. So thanks, Dad, I appreciate the commitment. So look, I'm wrapping up, but since I'm good at embarrassing people, I'll embarrass my dad a little bit further. At the young age of 58, my dad had a massive heart attack. And I remember like yesterday, standing in the examination room of one of the top cardiologists in the state of Tennessee, and he informed us my dad had 10 months to live because the damage in the cardiac arrest was so severe they couldn't even take any type of surgical procedure to repair it. My dad has taught faith all of my life, all the lives of our siblings, and he committed to his faith that he would not accept that judgment. Pleased to tell you that on Monday, we celebrated his 75th birthday. So I want to say, not only am I glad to accept his award, I'm glad at the wonderful age of 75, after a diagnosis 17 years ago, that he wouldn't be here, that he's still going strong. So God is good, thank you, and God bless you.